Well, welcome to Carving a New Path. The focus of this podcast is filled with stories and tools and resources to pause and reflect on the life you are living and who you want to become. Most of us were raised in a society that encourages productivity and do. And then when a life circumstance like a job layoff or an illness or the birth or death of a loved one or something else that disrupts your daily routine, it gives you a chance to pause and reflect on your life, a chance to practice going inward. Well, the show today is called May Is For Metta, and my guest is my good friend, Beth Terrence. She is the founder and facilitator of May Is For Metta, 31 Days of Loving Kindness, Meditation, and Exploration. She is a shaman, holistic health practitioner, and recovery coach. She lives in Annapolis, Maryland, and this year marks the 10th year of her leading the virtual May Is For Metta program. And I'll just tell you up front, there is a link in the comment section here of how to join May Is For Metta 2020 group, and we will remind you about that at the end of the show. So, welcome, Beth.
Hi, Andrea. So happy to be here with you on your new show.
Yes, I mean, it's a new adventure. We obviously have had many conversations on the radio and Zoom and in groups, but this is a new beginning, it feels like, for us of carving a new path.
Mm-hmm.
So, Beth, let's dive right into the topic. The first thing I want to ask you is, what is metta and what is May Is For Metta?
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you. Metta is a meditation practice that originates from Buddhist traditions. And the original name for the practice is Metta Bhavana, which comes from the Pali language. And I just wanted to share the meaning of that. So metta is translated as love, but not in the romantic sense of love, in more of the idea of friendliness or kindness. So that's where the term loving kindness comes from. That's frequently used as the description of metta. And also, I did want to share for people who are interested, although metta originates in Buddhist tradition, loving kindness meditation, which is often you'll see the acronym LKM, is a meditation practice that's derived from that. That is a secular practice, so people can do it based on whatever their personal beliefs are. They don't have to become a Buddhist to do the practice. And the bhavana, metta bhavana, has to do with development or cultivating, so building that foundation or structure for yourself in the energy or the quality of loving kindness. That's what the practice is all about. And it has a few parts, so I'll just mention those. There's the essence of it is cultivating that feeling or quality of loving kindness, and then there's the use of phrases which are repeated. Just an example is like, may I be happy, may I be peaceful, may I be free of suffering, may I have ease of well-being. And the practice always starts with that cultivation of loving kindness and then offering metta to ourselves. And so that's a foundational element of the practice. And then later it's extended out to different categories. And I'll just mention those. There's a benefactor, mentor. I say beloved, which is a family member or close friend, a neutral being, traditionally called an enemy or a difficult person, and all beings. And that could be all beings without exception, or larger groups of beings, like all women or all children. So there's an opportunity to really connect with ourselves, to connect with others and with the world. And, particularly right now in our current situation with the COVID crisis, a lot of us are in isolation. And so, and we might feel helpless in a lot of ways. And so this is a practice that can help really cultivate connection, as well as those feelings and qualities of loving kindness and compassion. I just wanted to read something. The description, again, I mentioned the foundation of Metta is really the feeling or the quality of loving kindness. And it said that the Buddha described that as a mother's love for her child, as that kind of quality. And so I just wanted to read just a description that comes from the Metta Sutta, which is a Buddhist text that talks about metta. It says, just as with her own life, a mother shields from hurt her own son, her own child, let all embracing thoughts for all beings be yours. Cultivate an embracing mind of love. What's the page? I seem to be missing the next page, so we're going to leave it there.
And I think that's a reflection of what a practice is also, is that sometimes you don't have all the lines or of something and you focus on one line. I want to say two things. First, I love it that you really brought in the fact that there's a foundation of Buddhism and that can be seen as a secular practice, that love for ourselves, love for the mother as in the earth, or how do we nurture ourselves, the self-love, the loving kindness for ourselves, loving kindness for right now we have there's a rabbit that just hopped by. I was going to say there's lots of animals around here, and squirrels and raccoons and different surprises every day, and lots of birds, and tuning into that is the love, the cultivating. And so instead of focusing on fear or uncertainty or that and so you and I've got all kinds of things going on. There's a cat knocking on the door to come in, so
the animals heard us. So they said we do metta for the animals.
Right. Metta for the animals. It's like they're all saying, like, I want to be a part of this too. Feeling the energy of that. So I just want to say that for the listeners, that anytime you hear something that is started from a religious practice, it doesn't have to connect to the religion unless you want it to. That there's a way of taking the good from the experience and then adapting it to your life.
Yeah, and I wanted to just add on to that, that almost all spiritual traditions have some type of practice that's centered around loving kindness or love and compassion, cultivating that. So it definitely, I think it's, although the roots are in Buddhism, that idea of cultivating those qualities is something that's universal. And then I had thought to mention, there's actually a lot of research today on loving kindness meditation, and that there's benefits like on all levels: body, mind, emotion, spirit. So I know sometimes it's helpful to get a sense of kind of how science meets spirituality, and just have the sort of the how and the why as much as the what. So, just some things that metta helps with: increasing positive emotions and decreasing negative emotions is something they found in the research. Particularly been found to be helpful reducing chronic pain, PTSD, and migraines, as well as some other things. And then they study with many different kinds of meditation now, changes in the brain. I've found that it actually helps increase the gray matter volume of the brain. So that really helps like with our cognitive function and decision making and things like that. They found it slows biological aging. So that's that's a plus. And actually a lot of meditation practices also help boost the immune system. So that's something we definitely need right now as well. And then just more on a sort of change level. And this was one of the reasons I really connected with metta. I'll talk a little more about later, is for self-criticism and that inner critic. And then it overall just increases empathy and compassion and our sense of connection, social connection to others, which also right now is, we're challenged in how to find that sense of connection. So, so that's,
Well, let's
pretty.
segue right into that then, that if you could share a story. I mean, one of the things that I really want the listeners to hear and to understand is that many times the practice that we're drawn to is because something has been happening in our lives that we're either seeking or longing for, or we've had, I call it a disruption to our lives, but it many times it can be loss or grief or trauma, that what that disruption is you're going along, you've got a routine in your life, and then you get in touch with some pain that you're in, or you get in touch with a longing that's there. So Beth, share a story about how you got started, how May Is For Metta came into your life, or Metta. I always think of you as like the May Is For Metta queen. So it's hard to just say a metta practice or a
Yeah.
loving kind practice. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and I will, I'll share a little bit more about what May is for Metta maybe as we go along.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was introduced to Metta in my sometime in my 20s. I had been meditating. I actually had found meditation as a teenager. It was something that really helped me in my life as I moved through a lot of life challenges. And and then in my 20s, I lived in New York City and really had the opportunity to go to a lot of different meditation classes. And there were some Buddhist centers in New York City. And so I was introduced to Metta and a couple of different, trainings that I had gone to. But one of my teachers really focused a lot on Metta. And I just, it was a practice I really connected with because of that energy of loving kindness, and particularly compassion and self-compassion. And, I already mentioned having that strong inner critic. Um, I was really struggling at that time in my life, actually, with addiction and the effects of trauma on my life, not even understanding about PTSD, and also trying to find my way in the world, you know, and so feeling very lost and in a lot of pain. And I also had the physical condition of fibromyalgia, which I was diagnosed when I was 20. So um, I was using holistic tools to support me with that, but just in terms of my life. And I found sort of a home in metta practice because it just it helped me to connect with myself and begin to offer those qualities to myself.
Mhm.
And it was hard at first because I definitely had a lot of resistance, and that's something that uh, it can come up in the practice. And the Dalai Lama talks a lot about that, about how when he first came to the West, he noticed that it was very hard for Western practitioners who were learning meditation and metta to really offer that love and compassion to ourselves. We tend to be taught, love others first, or maybe it's selfish to love ourselves. So that really helped me in my own relationship with myself and sense of um, just self-awareness, but also self-acceptance. And I found it helped in my healing as well. And then the other thing is, as the practice extends out to others, like I lived in New York City, and you see a lot of suffering on a daily basis. Particularly, I worked a lot with the homeless at that time, and just wherever you went, and whether it was a homeless person or a person, on the subway who you could just tell was really suffering, or hurting in some way. You couldn't always do something about it in an outward way, but I began to practice metta, actually. Taking the subway from my apartment in Queens to where I worked in Manhattan was often where I did my morning meditation practice. And so I would do metta on the subway and or wherever I was walking. But it really, I can't say I know it created relief for the people that I saw, but it helped me to have that sense of connection and feel like I can offer something when, because you certainly can't always offer money or a meal or something like that. So I think it really helps to, cultivate connection as well, and a tool that we can use in our personal lives and, to support what's happening in the world around us too.
I love that. And it's such a great reminder of also that as we cultivate loving kindness within ourselves, the thoughts within ourselves, and it doesn't mean you're not going to feel fear or anger or, things that maybe you want to try to push down. Sometimes actually doing metta will actually bring up the anger, will actually help to release and cleanse that. But the reminder of what you're doing for yourself is also an energy that's emanating around you. And I would imagine that everyone, if you really thought about it, a feeling of when there's someone in your life who it just feels good to be around them, or someone in your life who it just feels ugh to be around someone. And it's not even what they're saying or doing, it's just the presence of who they are. And if you're not aware of it, that may be something to actually tune into. Why you all of a sudden feel sad whenever you talk to a certain person, or angry, or feel joy filled, or feel love, and that. So thank you for sharing also that you don't have to be sitting in one place to practice metta, that you can take your practice and take a walk with it,
Mhm.
or someday get back on the subway with it, although there are people who are still out in the world and taking the subway. And
Yeah, definitely. And that's something we do focus on during May Is For Metta, is what we call a formal practice, where you might do a daily sitting meditation, and informal practices, or I like to say sometimes on the spot,
I like that.
you can carry with you wherever you go. So,
Well, why don't you, I know that you're going to lead us in day one, but how about telling everyone what is May is for Metta, um, and then take us into day one, lead us in the practice for today.
Okay, yeah. So I'd been practicing metta, I guess it could be around 15 years or so, and also had started leading meditation groups, local groups in different areas when I lived in New York, and then when I moved down to Maryland. And metta would always be a practice I'd bring in pretty regularly, and find that people really resonate with. I think, on one level, because it helps generate good feelings. So there's a positive quality there. But it also has a very good structure for meditation, in terms of the working with the energy and the phrases, and particularly for new meditators, sometimes gives a little bit more of a structure and anchor to help build a practice, as well as for people practicing to just go deeper in their practice. But I had a desire to create something that maybe was a virtual program that people can do, beyond the weekly group, or whether locally or just anywhere. But the other thing that happened, I've been working as a holistic health practitioner for a long time, but around that time in 2010, I had begun to bring more of my work to the realm of addiction and mental health recovery, and with a desire to bring holistic recovery pathways programs there. And I was working in a treatment program at the time. It was a residential program, and I led a lot of different holistic groups, shamanic healing and meditation, as well as working with individuals. And so metta was one of the groups that I would lead, and I just really saw the benefit for the participants who were in very early recovery, and they were able to really connect with the practice more easily than some other types of practices. And also, a lot of times their relationship with themselves, but family members, people in their lives, was, broken by active addiction. And the metta practice gave them a container for beginning to work on those relationships. And I just saw a really powerful impact there, as well as their sense of connection overall, which had been my own experience. And I wanted to create something that, people can use, beyond the treatment, their time in treatment as well. So it was just, it happened to be May, and I had the idea to start May Is For Metta that year in 2010. And it started in a Facebook group that first year. I just invited people, and people invited friends, and it just kind of took off. We had, I think, 116 practitioners that first year, and then in 2012 I started my blog called The Heart of Awakening: Searching for a New Paradigm. So I moved the practice over there. So since then, I share daily posts for the 31 days. And there's a little bit of a teaching or sharing about an aspect of metta, beginning with just building your foundation of metta, of the quality of it, and going through all the different categories. And then each day there's a guided daily practice that people can follow. And we do continue to have a Facebook group if people want to join there and connect in community as well, or get the posts via daily email. So there's a few ways to connect. And then this is, as we mentioned, our 10th year, so that's pretty exciting. And I say with a short hiatus, last year I had been going through a very challenging time in my life, a period of loss and grief. And a good friend of mine, actually, who was, I'm probably going to cry, was a member of the May Is For Metta community since the beginning. Bud Stupai, supporting him, sorry,
Oh,
in going through.
tender, he only died a few months ago.
Yeah, he was going through a very difficult cancer journey that was kind of just beginning at this time last year, and I was one of his supporters. And so just between the loss and grief I had been in and supporting him, didn't have the energy to hold the container last year. So, but I'm happy to be back this year, and it feels very fitting that we, come together in this way, as chaotic and difficult that the world is amidst our current crisis. So, but I did want to, one more breath. I did really want to dedicate this year's practice to Bud, because he's been a great supporter of May Is For Metta. And if you, even in some of the posts, sometimes, some of his comments and things still pop up. So his energy's with us. So.
I love that. He was a special man, and he left a special energy for us all to stay connected with. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I want to say to the listeners also that you may feel like you need to be out there doing something right now. And as Beth was saying, that some of the things that were going on in last year, it was not time for her to hold space for anyone else. It was time to hold space for herself. And she's back holding space for herself and holding space for you. But your practice right now may be holding space for yourself and feeling the feelings that you have now, and doing this as a practice of loving kindness for yourself, and seeing how that builds to follow the daily prompts and the daily practice, and notice where you can love and have loving kindness for others and for the world also. But we'll start with yourself.
Yeah, and I wanted to say something at some point about that. That kind of relates to what you just shared. Certainly this is a practice of loving kindness and compassion. And when we come to a new practice, sometimes we can have the tendency to set very high standards for ourselves, and maybe, kind of plan to have very rigid self-discipline, and that's okay if we, but we also want to be gentle with ourselves in the process. So it's an opportunity to maybe change some of those patterns about how we approach creating change in our life, or being present, with ourselves or our practice. So this feels very important, to kind of, and just in general, again, with the, stress and uncertainty in our world right now, that it's important to just be gentle with ourselves.
Absolutely. So how about leading us in today's day one?
Yes. Actually, I'm going to just pull up the practice, and I'd like to read it or lead it as it is in the post for just to support people who are practicing, and just to give the listeners a sense of what the practice is like.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. All right. So I'm going to invite you wherever you are to find a comfortable position for today. This can be sitting on a chair with your feet flat on the floor, or if you might want to sit cross-legged on the floor. You can even do this practice laying down. So really find a comfortable position for yourself. And if you are sitting, it is good to have your spine straight but not tense. You may want to put a pillow behind your back for support, or sit at the leading edge of your chair just to create that support. But again, make sure you're comfortable if you need a cushion or something to comfort your body. And once you come into that sitting or laying position, just begin to take a few deeper breaths, breathing in for a count of 5 and out for a count of 5. Just letting your body and your mind begin to relax. And for this practice, you may have your eyes closed if that's comfortable for you, or you can just have a soft gaze on the floor in front of you. Sometimes it's helpful also to just kind of allow your chin to tuck slightly toward your chest. Bring your spine and your neck into alignment. And as you're taking those few deeper breaths, take a moment to scan the body for any areas of tension or discomfort. Just allowing the next few breaths to wash over those areas, melting away any tensions. And also scanning your mind for any thoughts, worries, or busyness of the day. And then bring your breath and awareness to the heart center, right in the center of your chest. And you can notice how it feels to be present in your heart. This is the center of love, compassion, gentleness, and mercy for ourselves and others. And so as we begin to connect with the energy of our own heart, just tuning in. Sometimes people even feel to place a hand on their heart, and if that feels like something, in this moment or at any time, it can help just as a way to connect with that heart center. As I mentioned earlier, when the Buddha spoke of metta, he used the example of a mother's love for a child, and he taught that we need to love all beings as a mother loves her child. So that's the essence of our practice. It's generating the feeling of loving kindness and compassion so we can create that foundation for ourselves and share it with others in the world. So coming into our heart is the beginning of that step. And then we'll take a few moments to recall a time in your life when you felt totally held in the energy of unconditional love and compassion. So thinking of a time, and this often can be in relation to a memory of a specific person in your life, perhaps a grandparent, a good friend, a family member, someone when you just think of them, you light up with that energy of love and connection. For some people, you may not feel this with a person, and that's okay. Maybe there's a pet, an animal in your life, or even a place that you just feel that sense, a place in nature where you feel that sense of love and connection. take a moment to think of a time or a person, a being who can help you to generate that feeling in yourself. And really imagine yourself with them in that moment, letting the feeling and quality of loving kindness and compassion begin to fill your whole being. As you breathe in, let it fill every atom and cell of your being. And as you breathe out, let it just totally surround and envelop you. And this is really the quality of metta, or loving kindness. And this is where our practice begins. So allow yourself today to simply spend some time just being with this feeling, with the memory of your person or animal or place that helps generate that in you. And if your mind wanders or distractions arise, you can just remember to come back to this feeling, this quality, and this moment that you called on to generate it. Breathe it right into the center of your chest, into your heart center, allowing yourself to spend some time being present in the heart with this quality of loving kindness. So this is your practice for today. If you'd want to stay longer, you can pause for a few moments or you can come back to it later. We're beginning by keeping it simple and really exploring the essence of metta and the feeling of loving kindness. So if the chance arises and you remember, just try to connect with it a few times as you go about your day. Maybe as you go to bed tonight, you can make that connection and cultivate the energy of loving kindness, offering it to yourself as you breathe it in and allowing it to surround you as you breathe it out. And you can simply do this by bringing your breath and awareness to your heart center whenever you feel to. And then just simply notice how it feels to connect in this new way. Today is a day to invite loving kindness and compassion into your life in a more conscious way. So I'll invite you to take a few moments to come back. If your eyes are closed, you can open them. Sometimes as you come back, it's good to take a few deeper breaths or move your hands or feet a little bit. And I hope you enjoyed the practice. This is just day one of May Is For Metta. So if you're listening and you'd like to join, and if you're listening later on and you'd like to join, it's always the perfect time to begin. And the practice will be moving forward each day through the month of May and moving through the different elements of metta and loving kindness practice. I just want to also share there's some daily journal reflections after each day. And so sometimes it's good to create a journal for your exploration. It's a way to, again, to get to know yourself better and to help support you in cultivating a meditation practice. Because of some of the aspects of working with different people in your life through the different categories or even all beings, again, we're looking at our sense of connection with others and the world. Sometimes it can be a way to work on our different relationships, different difficult feelings. So there's really a lot of opportunity to work with it. And that's part of why we call it 31 days of meditation and exploration practice. So just for listeners, I'll just mention a few of the journal questions for today. One was, what did you notice? Did you find a time to practice? How did it feel? If not, what stopped you? Did you decide on a place to practice? What will help you practice tomorrow? How did it feel with your heart center, to connect with your heart center and feel the feeling of loving kindness? And are there any obstacles to your practice that you're aware of? that's for today, and that's just an example of what some of the daily journaling might be like. Hope you enjoyed today's practice.
Thank you, Beth. I will share a couple of things that came up for me as an example of what can happen. First of all, my grandmother Jackie was a total love beam, and we never lived in the same town when I was growing up, but she would pop in and stay with us every 2 or 3 years, and I would get to feel that love from her. And two other things popped up for me today. I'm staying with my friend Karen in Seattle during this time, and her husband is staying with his parents about 15 minutes from here. So we're all in interesting living situations. But they have 2 cats, and every night, Karen and I will watch something together on Netflix, and one of the cats, Kushka, always come, we call it magic, that I have the magic blanket, and she will come over and just cuddle in a way that is so loving, and like she just like stretches out her arm and cuddles in, and I just held that in my body, like what that feels like to have that sweet pet who will come up and cuddle with you. And Kiwi, the cat, likes to come and cuddle with me in bed. But then the other thing, right before we were doing this show, I saw that Jack Johnson had recorded his song Better Together, Better When We're Together, with people on a Zoom recording on YouTube. And I got up and I just started dancing to that. And it was like so much love in my heart for that song. And the other thing about that song is whenever I hear it, I'm thinking better together, better when we're all together. But then it's also this feeling of like when I'm fully present with myself and I have that kind of loving kindness for myself, there's this feeling of, oh, we're better when we're together. You know, like when all the parts of me are present and when I can feel that compassion and love for myself. So I was moving from the better when we're all together to, oh, life is so much better when I'm together with myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I think that's part of why we do spend quite a bit of time at the beginning of the practice, beginning to generate the feeling of metta and loving kindness and then offering it to ourselves. We don't rush to move to offering it to others because, we do, it's not that often that, we take that time for ourselves and it's just so essential. So as you said, it can really shift our experience with ourselves and in life. So, yeah.
Well, Beth, as usual, the time has gone very quickly, and
Yes.
I so appreciate you and what you are offering, what you're always offering, different ways of supporting people in the world. But this is a really special time of year. So once again, to the listeners, the link is in the comments section there. If you would like to join or go check out the web link to see what this is about, check in with yourself to see if this is a practice you want to explore. And there's a place to sign up. It is free. And then, Beth, is there anything you want to leave the listeners with? Is there a burning share that you want to leave us with?
I guess I'll leave with a few of the metta phrases, offering it to the listeners today. So, may you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be free of suffering, and may you have ease of well-being. And as my teachers say, Tashidala, I honor the greatness within you. So thank you for listening and connecting today. And Andrea, thank you and giving me a big virtual hug. Thank you so much for having me and helping anchor in and both returning to May Is For Metta and celebrating 10 years of May Is For Metta and all your support, now and always.
Well, much love. Mwah.
You too.
And thank you to all the listeners. This is Carving a New Path. That's all for today. Thank you.